Howdy folks, and welcome back to another video. Before I get started, I wanted to put a quick disclaimer. This video is going to be a lot heavier than most of my content on this channel. So, if you are uncomfortable by any of the following topics, that being homophobia, religious discrimination, transphobia, discussion of toxicities within religion, and ableism, please click off the video. I have plenty of other videos on my channel that you can watch, and if any of those things make you uncomfortable, I understand 100% if you can't sit through this. If that's the case, I hope you have a great day anyways, and I hope to see you sometime soon. If not, thank you for sticking around, and let us get started. In Animal Jam, a lot of people create masterpieces, which is in-game artwork that they use to pretty much express themselves and show off who they are and their ability in art, and find people who are like-minded and enjoy the same things, the same video games, the same movies, maybe even the same music. And this is a way of expression that can bring people together. But despite that, there's always been issues within the masterpiece system that there's been a lot of discussion about online. Animal Jam can be incredibly inconsistent with the kind of stuff that they allow you to mint in masterpieces or they reject. For example, a lot of people have been having difficulties putting out masterpieces that discuss them as a person, even if they aren't including personal information. Animal Jam has a very strict rule against including personal information in your masterpieces, such as how old you are, what your name is, or, obviously where you live and stuff like that. However, there's been a lot of inconsistencies with some more personal stuff, and whether or not you are allowed to include this information within your masterpiece. The thing is on Animal Jam's webpage, they do discuss what the rules are for their masterpieces. However, around the discussion of personal information, what they say is incredibly vague, and they don't define at all what counts as personal information and what is and isn't allowed to be shared about yourself. Because I feel like, obviously, you'd be allowed to tell someone what your favorite color is, or that you like this and this cartoon, and that obviously you shouldn't be sharing your phone number or your social medias. However, there is a lot of gray area within personal information, which Animal Jam themselves don't even seem to have an internal consistent rule set with, as certain moderators will accept some things, while the same masterpiece will be rejected by different moderators at different times. The three biggest points of contention seem to be information regarding your religion, orientation, or disabilities. For example, mentioning that you are a Christian, that you have autism, or that you are transgender. All three of these things are part of a person that are very important and personal to them. If you're religious, if you're Christian, that is a big part of your life, and oftentimes can affect how you live about your life. And if you're autistic, that affects how you see the world and people around you may perceive you, and how you perceive the people around you. And if you're transgender, that impacts your entire life and who you are and how people perceive you. And because of this, some jammers would like to disclose on masterpieces that they are part of this certain group. It allows them to find other people like them, so that Christians can meet other Christians, so that people who are trans can meet other trans jammers, so that they can find friends who they can relate to. However, that has been a little bit of a rocky road. Of course, if you go into Animal Jam today, you can find plenty of masterpieces mentioning that someone is Christian, or that someone is trans, or even a masterpiece with someone's pronouns. However, a lot of those things are a lot more difficult to get into game than others. For example, jammers who attempt to put masterpieces in game that disclose that they are Christian, or even a masterpiece that has a Bible quote, seem to have little to no difficulty in getting their masterpiece approved. Most of the time it happens first try, unless they experience the masterpiece glitch. However, people who attempt to make pride flag masterpieces or master blocks, or masterpieces with their pronouns, or masterpieces just mentioning that they're autistic and support autism awareness, a lot of the times it can take multiple tries to get it approved. That's if it ever gets approved at all. And there's a really big issue with this. When it comes to religion, obviously there's a lot more than one religion. And all sorts of players play Animal Jam. Christians play Animal Jam, Muslims play Animal Jam, Jewish people play Animal Jam. However, if you haven't noticed, you only ever really see Christian masterpieces around. Why is that? Well, unfortunately, as it turns out, Animal Jam has a big issue with accepting masterpieces from other religions that are not Christianity. For example, a couple years back, in fact, I think it was back in 2020 during the pandemic, I attempted to make a masterpiece for a pagan friend of mine. I'm not religious myself, but they were, and I thought that it would help them if I made something for them. And I attempted to submit this masterpiece dozens of times, and every single time it was rejected, to the point that I just gave up. And as it turns out, I'm not the only person experiencing this issue. As it turns out, Animal Jam is incredibly inconsistent as to what they do and don't allow in their masterpieces. Another example being my friend Annie Chu. Annie Chu has autism, and so she wanted a masterpiece just like she saw plenty of other autistic jammers have, saying that they are autistic and that they support autism acceptance. They tried submitting this masterpiece multiple times, but nothing worked, so finally they reached out to Animal Jam in an email. Annie Chu voiced their concerns in the email, and they got a response saying that Animal Jam would not allow personal information in masterpieces, such as symptoms. Except, Annie Chu didn't do any of the things that they said in the email were not allowed, and so she sent a response email saying that she had none of that information on her masterpiece. But instead of clarifying what it was that she had done wrong, they pretty much told her, "We get that you're sad, but skill issue." On its own, that is incredibly frustrating, especially seeing that there are so many masterpieces already in-game with the exact same information, sometimes word for word, that were accepted. And I'm sure it took those people multiple tries as well, as I've seen expressed in places like Reddit. However, that just shows a big issue with internal inconsistencies. Instead of there being a solid rule set as to what can and can't be in an Animal Jam masterpiece, you just kind of gotta hope you find somebody with the same viewpoints as you. And that is not right. If Animal Jam is going to have solid rules about personal information that you can or cannot share, they should be consistent. If they don't want people talking about their disabilities in Animal Jam, it should be solid, period. No discussion of disabilities, and they should not allow it on any masterpieces. I'm not going to put in my personal opinion as to whether I think you should be allowed to discuss that in Animal Jam, but whether or not you should or shouldn't, it should be consistent. And unfortunately, consistent is by far the last thing that Animal Jam is. Back on the topic of religion, there has been another big issue with religion in Animal Jam, that being that certain jammers are going out of their way to harass people who do not align with their religious beliefs. In fact, there's a particular pack that is quite well known for going after jammers, going as far as to follow people into their own dens to go after their beliefs. And I have met quite a few people from that pack who are perfectly fine, perfectly normal individuals who just joined the pack to look for people with the same religious beliefs, which is 100% valid. The problem comes into play when there's a certain couple jammers within that pack who are making it their personal goal to convert people in a children's game. And they have been reported more times than I can count. I have reported them multiple times, and almost every friend that I know who have witnessed it hasn't reported them, and that's only in my personal friend group. I can only imagine that they have been reported dozens of times, and yet they remain on Animal Jam, despite what they're doing being clear harassment, especially when it comes to targeting LGBTQ+ jammers. I have a specific example. A friend of mine had jammers go to their den to harass them over masterpieces they made. These masterpieces were not religious in nature. They did contain demon-like figures, however they weren't meant to be an insult to any religion. However, they decided, these jammers from the pack, that it was insulting, and that this art was a waste of time, and if it was a waste of time, they should have just gone about their day, but instead they decided to go into my friend's den and harass them over it. And it was certainly an event, and Animal Jam still has not banned any of the people involved. And I can understand that maybe it would be more intelligent to give them a chat ban. However, this is far from the first person they've gone after, and they are still going after people. In fact, if you go to the Pillow Room on any given day, I'm sure at some point you'll find a couple people going on about their religious beliefs and attempting to convert other people via preaching, which is very uncomfortable. A lot of people playing Animal Jam are not religious, and some of the people who are playing Animal Jam do not have the same religious beliefs. And it's important that we respect our differences instead of trying to turn Animal Jam into a means of evangelism. And despite this being a pretty severe situation that is going on, I have been told that by attempting to put Animal Jam masterpieces of pride flags in-game, that I was, quote, shoving it down other players' throats, when these were just meant for my own personal pride and to find people like me. Whereas people are actively going out to, quote, shove their religion down other people's throat. Now, I do think there is a reason that this is happening, and I do think that it goes beyond the simple explanation that people at Animal Jam headquarters might just have some sort of bias. I think that it is actually a lot more than that. For starters, if Animal Jam decides to stop letting people promote their religion in-game, a lot of parents and a lot of kids might get very upset considering how personal a religion is to somebody. Believe it or not, I think that it is an amazing thing that there are jammers out there holding Bible study sessions in-game. That is the most wholesome thing I have ever heard, being able to gather with a bunch of like-minded individuals to share over this topic. I think that is amazing, and it's incredible that the internet can give you the opportunity to do that. And I think that so long as it's being child appropriate and isn't going after anyone else, that should be perfectly fine. But the problem is that isn't what's happening. There are people going out of their way to use their religion as a weapon against other jammers, and that's not okay. And unfortunately, if Animal Jam decides to straight across the board ban religion from their game, it's going to unfortunately impact a lot of people who aren't doing any harm and are just enjoying the game. And so we need to be a little bit more precise with what's going on. So here's my suggestion. The same way that I wouldn't say ban all LGBTQ+ content from the game, I don't think you should ban all religious content or all content regarding disabilities in the game. There clearly should be limits as to how far you can go with these conversations. For example, I may be gay, but that doesn't mean I should go around discussing my personal relationship with other people in-game. The same way that if I was Christian, I shouldn't go around the game attempting to convert other people to my religion. It's sort of a knowing your audience thing. However, that might be too complex a concept to give to little kids. And so it might be wise for Animal Jam just to straight up ban all personal information along those veins. And while that would be unfortunate, I do think that would be the most likely solution that Animal Jam would put into play. But what would I do? If it were me, I think that the best solution would be put a clear rule set as to what is and is not allowed in masterpieces, either on the Animal Jam website, or even better, in-game when you submit your masterpiece. This would not just say, very vaguely, no personal information. It would go into detail as to what is and isn't allowed. For example, you'd be allowed to make masterpieces involving quotes from religious scripture. However, you would not be allowed to make masterpieces that promote hate speech. You'd be allowed to make masterpieces displaying your pride, but you would not be able to make masterpieces that involve any sort of romantic or graphic information. The same way that you could make masterpieces about whether or not you have a certain disability, but you would not be able to include symptoms or medical information. I feel like those are all very reasonable rules to be had. I mean, they have more strict rules for master blocks. They are very specific with what is and isn't allowed on master blocks, going as far as to clarify that stuff such as bathtubs, showers, and beds should not be allowed in Animal Jam. And I think that if these rules are made, which they should be, that they should be shared across every single moderator who's going to be in charge of accepting and denying masterpieces. This is because if there is a solid rule set, it's definitely not being made very clear at AJHQ, because the moderators are incredibly inconsistent. I see simple PG stuff that should be perfectly fine for a kid's game getting denied all of the time. But then in the same breath, I'll see masterpieces that are way too graphic, or way too uncomfortable for Animal Jam being approved. And that is incredibly upsetting and can be very much an off-put for people who want to start making art in Animal Jam. They may be worried that they'll spend all of this time working on something just to have it denied. And the same consistent attitude should be held towards discussion in-game as well. For example, bullying. You should not allow discrimination, persecution, and hate speech on your platform. You are going to make jammers inevitably uncomfortable. And this is supposed to be a game that's safe for children, all children, regardless of who these kids are, what these kids believe, and where they come from. And yet, I see so many people who don't find this place like it's a safe space just because they are a certain way. And I feel like that really needs to change. And I hope you guys can understand that. I don't have any issues with these groups. I love everyone, at least I try to, regardless of what your religion is, who you love, or what makes you up. I think that all people should have a place in Animal Jam. And I just think that Animal Jam needs to take some steps towards it being a safe space for everyone. Anyways, I'm sorry for rambling. This was very much a rambly video. But thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all around.